so the mass deployment can be done a couple of ways. One way is with a USB stick, where you put all the configuration for all the PDUs on a single USB stick or multiple USB sticks, and you just plug them into the PDUs and they configure themselves based on a script that has all the commands for configuring everything on the PDU. And the other file is a spreadsheet that lists all of the PDUs by serial number. And the rest of the columns on a row would have all the parameters for the commands to configure the PDU. This spreadsheet, all we're doing is configuring the IP address and the PDU name. So once the USB stick's plugged into the PDU, that PDU will find its serial number in a row and then configure itself with these parameters based on this script. After about 30 seconds, the PDU will show a smiley face in its display locally and reboot, and it will be configured. It's that simple. So if you put these files on 10 USB sticks, you can configure 10 PDUs at a time. Again, it takes about 30 seconds for one PDU. So once those 10 are done, you plug them into 10 other PDUs. So you can see how quickly you can configure hundreds of PDUs with this method. The other method would be a touchless method, where you would take these same files, instead of putting them on a USB stick, you put them on a TFTP server. The PDUs by default are configured for DHCP, so you can configure the DHCP server to give the PDU not only an IP address, but also the IP address of that TFTP server. So the PDU goes to the DHCP server, gets its temporary IP address, and also gets the IP address of the TFTP server. Now it's able to go out and download these files, and it'll do the same thing it did with the USB stick, where it finds its serial number in the spreadsheet and configures itself with this new IP address, and it's ready to go. We call that touchless configuration. So that's the mass deployment. Now I was going to demonstrate one other feature of the PDUs, and that is JSON RPC. So there is a full software developers kit or API supported with the PDU. So anything you can do through the web GUI, configuring, turning off outlets, getting information, you can do with JSON RPC scripting. What you might want to do is, if you have a back office, ERP or something that is you use for requesting installation of servers or things like that, some kind of DSIM, where once it's requested, that request could generate a script to be run that actually turns on an outlet of the PDU and actually names the outlet for that server. So I'll demonstrate kind of quickly how that works. So these are a number of scripts that I wrote. I wrote in Python and JSON RPC, right? So JSON RPC embedded in Python scripts. So one of the things I want to do, I can actually show an outlet being turned off and on. So red is on. You'll see this outlet is on. So I can actually run my script. You'll see turn off outlet, and then I give it the outlet number, and then the IP address or host name of the PDU, and the credentials. And if you want the status, that should change to off. And I can use the same method but the different script to turn on an outlet. So you see how simple that is. And I've written some for changing the name or getting the name of an outlet, getting outlet information. Let me show you one of those. So I can get, so depending on what information, do I want to get amperage, wattage, voltage? So that's why I forgot to put the credentials in there. So you can see that'll show the wattage, tells me what the name of that outlet is. Let's see the state, whether it's on or off. These are scripts that I wrote, right? And people can utilize the ones I wrote and just embed them in other scripts maybe that they want to write. But this is just how I wrote them, right? So that they can write them however they want. You know, I just happen to use these arguments and these in this order. But you know what they do with these scripts, it's entirely up to them. Use the ones I've already created and manipulate them, or add them somewhere else, embed them in other scripts, or create their own. I think, well, so like I said, if you have a non-Raritan element management system like our PowerIQ that you want to collect data from our PDUs, and this system doesn't do SNMP or Modbus, right? But it will do, you know, it can run scripts. So there are a lot of back office software out there. Customers want to be able to manipulate our PDUs somehow, like I said, set the name of an outlet, turn an outlet on. They can do that because these back office software will run scripts, right? Okay. Somebody logs into this back office software, does a server request, right, and it goes through a change control process where they decide where that server is going to go, what outlets are going to be plugged in. When they decide all that, the scripts are run in the background to name the outlet on our PDU and turn the outlets on, things like that. Or maybe they have some other BMS that wants to collect data, right, environmental data or just power data. They can use JSON RPC because some BMSs don't do SNMP. I could embed each one of these, you know, like I'm typing these via command line, but I could have a whole nother script that had a whole bunch of command lines in that one script, right, that actually ran 10 of these commands that I typed in here, you know, all in one script, or, you know, somehow, you know, doing more than one at a time. And there's also, you know, in the SDK, there's some bulk commands like outlet information where I can get one thing at a time, like get the wattage, get the current. But there's also a different way to do that, right? So, and there's using bulk. The point is, you can put these into any kind of scripting to get all this data and set configurations without utilizing SNMP or the Web GUI or PowerIQ. Yeah, so let's go to the Raritan website. You go to support and select the PX. Actually, it'll be under PX2 or PX3. And here's the SDK, right? And this will have the documentation, but it'll have the whole SDK, which you just unzip and put it in a folder somewhere. And that's what I did. And then I just created all my Python scripts in that same directory. But there's also, you know, we can help anybody with how to use this. Although, I don't know if you want to mention also that that mass deployment method is also available on our access devices, our serial console switches, our access products, right, our KVM switches and serial console switches. Yep. We can configure those the same way with a USB. It's a little bit different, but it's still, you know, using a USB stick to configure them.